was a hot day in the countryside. Timmy and Ant were searching for some water. After walking around for some time, she came to a spring, but Timmy had to climb up a blade of grass to reach the spring. Just as she started to climb, she slipped accidentally and fell in the water. Timmy struggled hard to stay afloat and prevent herself from drowning. She looked around for help, but there was no one. At that very moment, Timmy was spotted by Dovey, the dove. Dovey immediately plucked a leaf from a tree nearby and threw it on the waterbed near Timmy. He managed to get on the leaf and find his way towards the riverbank to safety. Timmy looked at Dovey and thanked him for saving her life. Just then, a hunter nearby, hiding below a tree, was about to shoot Dovey. To save her friend's life, Timmy immediately bit him on the heel. The hunter missed his shot, and Dovey, thanking Timmy back, quickly flew off to his nest. Boomy the bear came across a log where a swarm of bees had nested to make their honey. As he snooped around, a single little bee flew out of the log to protect the group. Knowing that Boomy would eat all the honey, the little bee stung him sharply on the nose and flew back into the log. This angered Boomy beyond words, and he swatted at the log with his big claws, determined to destroy the nest of bees inside. This only alerted the bees, and quick as a wink, the entire swarm of bees flew out of the log and began to sting Boomy from head to toes. Boomy saved himself by running to and diving into the nearest pond. He had learned his lesson the hard way that day. It is better to bear a single injury in silence than to bring about 1,000 by reacting in anger. Rami, the shepherd, loved his cattle. He used to take them for their daily walks up the mountain. One such clumsy morning, he thought of playing a prank on the villagers nearby. He shouted wolf and cried for help. His voice echoed across the hills. Suddenly, a few locals from the village nearby turned up. Rami burst out into laughter. The villagers, angry at his prank and mischief, walked away. But danger awaited him next day. It was a sunny morning, and Rami had come up the hill as usual. After an hour, suddenly, there was a panic among the sheep. A wolf had indeed turned up that day to Rami's dismay. Rami, terrified, started shouting for help, but none responded this time. Rami ran for his life, having learned his lesson. Lying can invite even more trouble. It was a hot summer day. Coo, the thirsty crow, was looking for water everywhere. Finally, he found a pitcher. but to his dismay, there was little water in it. Though the pitcher was high enough and Ku had a narrow neck, still he failed to drink from it. Ku was about to give up when an idea struck him. Picking up some small pebbles lying around, he dropped them into the pitcher one by one. With each pebble, the water rose a little higher until at last it was near enough to the brim. Ku smiled to himself and happily quenched his thirst. Jim, the dog, was loitering around for quite a while for food, and it indeed turned out to be a lucky day for him. Jim finally found a piece of bone to his surprise, lying nearby on the ground. He immediately picked it up to hurry back home so that he can relish his food in peace. As Jim was crossing a narrow footbridge, he happened to look down at the stream below and saw his own reflection on the silent, clear water. Jim paused for a while as a thought crossed his mind. Is it some other dog carrying a bone much larger than his? Without giving it much thought, Jim barked at the dog in the river, dropping his bone in the process. He realized his mistake and learned his lesson. It is very foolish to be greedy. Sly, the fox, and Petty, the stork, were on visiting terms and seemed very good friends. Sly invited Petty to dinner one day, but for a joke, put nothing before her but some soup in a very shallow dish. Sly easily lapped up the soup to his heart's content. But Petty could only wet the end of her long bill in it. "I am sorry," said Sly. "The soup is probably not in your fate." "No need for apologies," said Petty. "I hope you will return this visit and come and dine with me tomorrow." Sly accepted the invitation and headed for Petty's place the next day. When they were seated at table, Sly found that the dinner was contained in a very long-necked jar with a narrow mouth, in which he could not insert his snout. As Petty finished her meal, Sly sat there starving. He indeed learned his lesson the hard way. One bad turn deserves another. Once there lived Cinderella, a teenage girl who had lost both her parents when she was very young. She was left to the care of her stepmother and stepsisters who were mean to her. One day, the king of that country gave a ball to which all ladies of the land were invited. Though all her stepsisters went for it, Cinderella was left behind. When they were gone, Cinderella cried bitterly, but then her godmother, a good old fairy, appeared. She waved her magic wand and transformed her into a beautiful princess. The fairy found a pumpkin nearby and touched it with her wand, turning it into a grand coach. Cinderella set off as the fairy warned her to return before midnight, else the spell will break, and her attire will transform into that of the rugs. In the ball, everyone was enchanted by her beauty. She danced with the prince merrily. But as the clock was about to strike 12, Cinderella was reminded about her pledge to the fairy, and she rushed out of the ball. In a hurry, she dropped her glass slipper. Prince, surprised, noticed the glass slipper. He longed to meet her again, and felt sure that no one else in his kingdom would wear such a tiny slippers but she. After a long search, the prince finally found her, surprised but delighted at the same time. He asked her if she would marry him. Cinderella agreed at once. Cinderella was married to the prince in all grandeur, and they lived together happily ever after. Razzie, a town mouse, once visited a relative who lived in the country. For lunch, Cole, the country mouse, served wheat stalks, roots, and acorns. Razzie ate very little, only to be polite. After the meal, Cole heard the comforts of city life from Razzie. When Razzie asked Cole to go home with her to the city, she gladly agreed. Soon they reached the mansion in which Razzie lived. Cole was on cloud 9. They found several delicacies on the table in the dining room. Just as Cole was about to grab a bite, she heard a cat mew loudly and scratch at the door. In great fear, Cole fled after telling Razzie, "You may have the luxuries that I have not, but I prefer my simple life in the country with the peace and security that go with it." Simon, a poor woodcutter, used to cut trees in woods. One day, he was cutting wood on the bank of a river. Just then, his axe fell into the river. No matter how much he tried, he could not get a hold of the axe. He sat on the bank of the river, weeping. Mercury, the goddess of water, appeared. She asked the reason of his weeping. Simon narrated the entire incident, still in tears. Then Mercury dived into the water, trying to console him. She instantly brought him a golden axe. Simon refused to take it as it did not belong to him. Mercury dived into the water and brought a silver axe. Simon did not take it either. Then she brought an iron axe, which indeed belonged to Simon. He recognized it at once and immediately accepted it. Mercury was very pleased at his honesty and rewarded Simon with the other golden and silver axes. There is no doubt that honesty is It was an unusual day in the forest for all the animals except Paddy, the donkey, who found a lion's skin left in the forest by a hunter. He dressed himself in it and hatched a plan to amuse himself by hiding behind a bush and rushing out suddenly at whoever passed that way. And he did manage to do so, and had quite a good laugh when Sammy, the deer, and Pete, the elephant, were scared to their wits. Paddy was so pleased to see the animals running away from him that he felt he were the king of the jungle himself. In excitement, he soon let out a large bray, attracting the attention of Sly, the fox. Sly smiled to himself without a care in the world. Paddy tried to scare him away, but soon found himself in an awkward situation when Sly told him, "You gave yourself away with that silly bray. Isn't it better to be what you are instead of pretending what you aren't?" Sly, the fox, loved to eat grapes. One fine day, he was taking a stroll across the beautiful countryside. Suddenly, he stumbled on a grape vineyard. Sly's mouth watered as he saw the grapes hanging from the vines. Sly started to jump to get a hold of the grapes. It was high up there, and reaching it was not easy at all. He tried but failed again and again. As Sly got tired, he felt angry on the grapes and decided to walk away without tasting any of them. He thought that the grapes must be sour. But the very next day, he came across the same vineyard. To his surprise, he saw some of his friends feasting on the same grapes that he rejected the previous day. One of them looked down and smiled to him. "It's easy to despise what you cannot have." Sly's head held in shame as he went on his way. There once lived Peter, a friendly grasshopper. Peter was quite lazy, as everyone used to complain. And then there was Cox, the hard-working ant. Cox happened to be a good friend of his, and quite often they were seen together playing. But summertime was a busy time for Cox. That was the period for collecting food. It was a bright summer day and Cox was all sweaty, carrying heaps of sugar cubes to their house. Peter yawned at Cox as he walked away. Then came the winter. There was snow all over. Shivering and cold, Peter came to Cox's doorsteps, asking for food. But Cox did not have any excess food and hence could not help Peter. Peter left Cox's place sadly, starving. Peter learned the lesson that one should always plan for the future. Little, the hard-working mouse, loved everyone in the forest and was a kind-hearted soul. Ridley, the lion, lived in the middle of the jungle in a large den. One day in the evening, Little was in a hurry to get back home. Without knowing, he happened to cross Ridley's den as Ridley was resting outside. Ridley was half awake and grabbed Little by his paws. Pleaded for his life and promised that if Ridley let him go, he would also help him in some way. Ridley agreed. Just then, a hunter threw his net on Riley, trapping him. Feeling pity for him, Little quietly walked up to him and chewed through the net. A kindness is never wasted. Nick, a man in his 30s, and his wife Gloria had the good fortune to have a goose. They named it Pete. Surprisingly, Pete had an amazing quality of laying a golden egg every day. Both Nick and Gloria imagined that if the Pete can lay golden eggs, it might have more golden eggs inside its stomach. And they thought that if they could get all of it at once, they would get mighty rich very soon. Nick and Gloria decided to kill Pete in their farm itself. To their shock, upon cutting Pete open, they found that its innards were like that of any other goose. There was no gold either. They learned their lesson the hard way. Excess greed can lead to one's downfall. This is Howie, the hare, and that is Tom the tortoise. Once, Howie Hare saw a Tom tortoise walking slowly with a heavy shell on his back. Howie Hare, very proud of himself, saw how fast he could run. Asked Tom Tortoise, "Shall we race?" Tom Tortoise agreed for challenge, and referee Eddie Elephant blew the whistle to start the race. Howie Hare hopped off towards finish line at a lightning speed, leaving behind Tom Tortoise. Seeing Tom Tortoise moving very slow, one step at a time, proud Howie Hare rested under a tree to take a nap. Tortoise kept moving one step at a time, slow and steady, towards the finish line. Hour passed and Howie Hare woke up to see Tom Tortoise moving very close to finish line. Howie started running fast, but it was too late. Tom Tortoise won the race, and Howie Hare's head bent in shame.